Uganda, the Ugandan president has signed into law a really dangerous and destructive anti-LGBTQ law. It's titled the Anti-Homosexuality Act of 2023. And of course, I cover American politics, so this connects to American politics. We'll get to how Ted Cruz responded correctly, and then now he's getting called out by other Republicans. And that shows you how far, or of how terrible of a place the GOP is in right now ideologically, that a U.S. senator could come out and correctly speak out against this violation of human rights and then get called out by people within his party. It's pretty disturbing. But first, here's this on the Anti-Homosexuality Act of 2023. This is from CNN. The Anti-Homosexuality Act of 2023, which was introduced in Uganda's parliament in early March, calls for the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality, which is defined as cases of same-sex relations involving people who are HIV positive, as well as with minors and other categories of vulnerable people. Anyone else who engages in gay sex could face life imprisonment. So one of the things dishonest people will do is say, this is just about pedophilia because of the minor part of it. But then, completely unrelated to that, anyone else who engages in gay sex could face life imprisonment if convicted, while anyone caught trying to have same-sex relations could face up to 10 years in prison. And then here's this from CNN, also being reported.
President Biden is threatening sanctions in Uganda after the president of Uganda signed one of the strictest anti-LGBTQ laws in the world. President Biden called the measure shameful and demanded its immediate repeal. Republican Senator Ted Cruz joined the president, slamming the new law, calling it horrific and wrong. Our David McKenzie joins us live from Johannesburg with more. David, good morning. You've been following this for a long time. It's been making headlines, but now it is officially law. And some of the provisions in it also criminalize sex education completely for the gay community. They also call for rehabilitation or conversion therapy, as many people call it here in the United States. This is broad. Where does this go?
Poppy, good morning. It is very broad and very dangerous for the LGBTQ community, say human rights lawyer. I've been speaking to people who are part of that community in East Africa. They say they are afraid. They're worried because this is a very vaguely worded bill, but has very severe punishments, including years in prison for promoting homosexuality. And I'm using the term in that bill. It also says that you can't have sex education for those who are in the LGBT community. Public health officials say that it will stop people going to clinics and getting services because they are afraid. Already, many people have been fleeing their homes, afraid of being handed over to the authorities.
Wow. And then let me show you here. This is from Ted Cruz's account on Twitter, and he writes, "This Uganda law is horrific and wrong. Any law criminalizing homosexuality or imposing the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality is grotesque and an abomination. All civilized nations should join together in condemning this human rights abuse." And he was responding to a New York Times article about this, which is correct. Ted Cruz is not a reasonable person, but there he's saying something correct. And then Jenna Ellis, former Trump lawyer, says you can condemn a law that imposed the death penalty for homosexuality without being pro or hashtag LGBTQ. Like Bud Light, you should have just said nothing, not this. Like Bud Light, you should have just said nothing. Now, if you somehow missed the Bud Light story, that shouldn't have been a story. A trans woman influencer was sponsored by, I guess, Bud Light, and promoted Bud Light, and that was enough to become a reason to boycott Bud Light for much of the right wing or a part of the right wing and lose their mind. Bud Light has betrayed us. Why? Just a woman sponsoring a beer. It's crazy. Well, then the conversation continues, and it looks like a journalist says pro-DeSantis influencer Jenna Ellis is having a meltdown because, or just someone on Twitter. I don't know if it's a journalist or not. Let's see. We can find out. Yes, a journalist. Influencer Jenna Ellis is having a meltdown because Ted Cruz said that a Uganda law criminalizing homosexuality is bad. And then Jenna Ellis responded to that saying, like, you're incorrect. Let me correct what you should have wrote. And she said, independent media personality Jenna Ellis openly disagreed with a pro-LGBTQ tweet from Ted Cruz that said the Ugandan penalty for child rape is too harsh. See, that was a dishonest thing I was telling you about that was coming. Fixed it for you. And by the way, I obviously am very pro-LGBTQ, and I think we should all be. But how Ted Cruz calling out a human rights abuse and a human rights violation and just a disturbing piece of legislation like that is him being pro-LGBTQ. It's just kind of being pro-human beings, even though, again, we should be pro-LGBTQ, but obviously I don't expect that of Ted Cruz. And then Ted Cruz responded to that from Jenna Ellis saying, Jenna, not sure why you're defending this barbaric Ugandan law. It imposes life imprisonment for consenting adults who engage in gay sex. That's ridiculous. You or I may or may not agree with their choices, but consenting adults should not go to jail for what they do in their own bedrooms. And there it is. And for me, separate from just this law, plenty of takeaways about that and the exchange. For Ted Cruz, the takeaway should be, wow, what movement have I put myself in that a former Trump lawyer is, and by the way, it's not just her, that's an example. There were a lot of backlash from people online who were right-wingers, but she's a notable example, that I would be in a movement that would be upset at me or upset with me for speaking out against a law like this. That should make him do a little introspection. Wow, what party am I in that other people in my party will call me out for this, a reasonable thing that he said, like that? Really disturbing. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.